Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of If Supr Says It. This is just the SI 23 predictions, I guess 2.0 version, with myself and Yardy. If you missed it, we did make, original predictions before group stages. So if you'd like, you can go back and listen to how wrong or right we were there. But we'll talk a little bit about that now. How are you doing, Yardy, on this Super Bowl Sunday?
I'm very tired. It's 1 p.m. I don't know if I've ever been up this early.
Yeah, that's I was going to say that's understandable, but honestly, you've already graduated college. So, maybe the days of like waking up afternoon are should be a thing of the past, I guess. But to each their own, I suppose.
Yeah, to each their own.
Okay, so I think what we'll do first is just talk a little briefly about how the group stages went, and then maybe talk about, some of the under and over performers, and then get into this playoff bracket, which was announced not too long ago. So, touching on Group A here, Koi finished first at 13 points. G2 finished second at 12 points. W7M finished third at 11 points. Space Station finished fourth at 4 points, which means they will start in losers bracket. And Elevate finished last. They did not win a map. I believe our predictions beforehand were, I think you picked Koi to get grouped. So that didn't go right. I think we both thought SSG would be like second or third. So obviously they disappointed. I think we both thought, I think I said either Elevate or G2 would get last. Obviously G2 played way better than people thought. Elevate, no surprise, kind of their struggles in APAC carried over to this tournament. But I guess the big surprise in this group is it could go either way. There's actually a lot of surprises in this group. W7M not winning the group, considering up until the last day, they were undefeated. And they're one of the tournament favorites. And then I guess they kind of fumbled the bag, losing 2-0 to Koi, and giving up that spot. And not only giving up that spot, but then G2 managed to pass them as well. And then SSG just, I think over the last two play days, SSG, they lost. These are their map scores: 7-0, 7-4, 7-5, 7-2, 7-1, 7-0. So over 3 days, those are their map scores, and they were not on the winning side of any of those scores. So what do you think about Group A?
So if you look at it, we all thought the Sonic Liquid Wolves group would be the most top heavy, but this group was by far the most top heavy because you have the first place team with 13, which was the second highest points for a first place team. G2 had the highest points for a second place team, and W7M had the highest points for a third place team. So these guys were absolutely just farming off of SSG and Elevate.
W7M actually have more points as the third seed than any other group's second seed besides Sonic's.
Yeah, so these guys were absolutely farming. I think SSG was extremely disappointing. I didn't expect them to win the event or even win the group, but you expect a team like that to be competitive. And I do believe they have the worst. So the Dire Wolves don't even have a round count on CGG. Like, there's no round differential. So I'm going to give SSG some credit and say they were the second worst team here because I don't know what Dire Wolves were. They literally don't have it inputted here. But SSG's round count was worse than the team who went 0-8 in map count. So this group was shocking because SSG was just flat out terrible. And if we look at the stats, and I'm looking at your screen, those are abysmal stats, especially from Rampy and Fultz. And I was reading something on Reddit, and someone put, every so often on Reddit you see something that's a knife to the heart. And if I'm Fultz and Rampy and reading this Reddit thread, I would cry. But basically, someone said the reality of the situation is that Rampy and Fultz are no longer S tier players. That is the nicest way of saying that you have fallen off. So those two have statistically fallen off. I mean, all of them are playing abysmal. Like, your highest rated player is a support player with a 0.9. you're never going to win games like that. You're never going to win if your support player's top fragging. Fultz is minus 20. I mean, you know stats. I know stats. Those are just your CCG should not look like a nice autumn day, and that's rough.
So just touching on SSG, if we were to go to the full stats, not just looking at the leaderboard, Fultz was the second lowest player in the tournament outside of Shuttle after group stage. He is 0.74 rating, negative 21 overall, negative 4 on entry, 48% cost, and he is their entry player. And then not far next to him is Rampy, who has a 0.79 rating, negative 19 overall, negative 3 on entry, 53% cost. And he is playing Sledge Oryx as his main operators. So when you look at, a lot of the people make fun of, I guess you would say, SSG's attack. Like, that seems to be the big issue with SSG is they really struggle on attack. They're super slow. But I mean, it's hard to attack if your entry players can't get kills. Their two lowest rated players, their two bottom frag players, are their two entry players. So for SSG, if they're going to have any chance to turn this around in losers bracket, because since they finished in 4th place, they do start in losers bracket, those guys have to have complete one. Like, we need 2020 SI Rampy and Fultz because I mean, they're among the worst players in the tournament right now, and they're playing the fragger roles. If you look at these roles for other teams, these are other teams' top-rated players on those same roles.
Just look at the sandwich there in between. If you look at Doki and Spoit,
yeah, and like you mentioned, I think Bosco did bad in their last game, but leading up until their last game, Bosco was like the only player who was positive or even on their team. Their entire team is negative. And it's hard to know, like, is it an IGLing issue? Is it a way they play issue? Or is it simply that they can't get any entry kill? Like, they don't get any frags, so it's hard to attack when you're always man down, or you never take map control. Like, I couldn't imagine trying to be an IGL where I'm always man down, or I just never have map control because my top fraggers can't get kills. So, like, to be honest, I don't know if they just need to make an in-tournament role change, have Yeti try to entry, have Houghton go back to Sledge, because we know he's been really good at that. Like, Houghton right now is playing Ace. Like, have Houghton go to Sledge, put Rampy on Ace, let Yeti go to entry on Yana, have Fultz. Like, I don't know if you can make that kind of change in the middle of a tournament, but I feel like that's something they have to be looking at, because I do think those guys could play that role. But yeah, for them right now, I mean, we'll talk about it once we get to the playoffs, but I don't, unless they do a complete 180, I don't think they can win. I don't even think they're going to win a game in playoffs. And then just touching on some of the other teams in this group real quick, obviously, G2 had a really good group stage. Doki and Alamau both had over 100 kills. Doki is plus 27. Alamau's plus 22. And Doki, historically, I would say people give him a hard time for being inconsistent. And he was, for the most part, very consistent. I don't know if that's because now with Citizen not on their team, he's more free to play how he wanted to, because obviously I do think Doki and Citizen, they kind of like, they're in each other's space a little bit, where they do kind of, Doki's in a way having to play around Citizen, so maybe he's just more free to do what he wants. And then Benja even had 95 kills, so they almost had 3 players with 100 kills, which kind of reminds me of the TSM last year, where Chala and Geo were just getting shit on, and the other 3 guys were going nuclear. And people gave Blur a hard time, but he actually finished his group stage with a higher rating than Virtue, negative 14 with 9 plants and 2 clutches. So G2 definitely a surprise, I think, to a lot of people. I think people didn't know what to expect with Citizen not on their team. And it seems to have been like maybe a breath of fresh air for them a little bit here.
Yeah, they G2 looks very impressive. G2's kind of like DZ. Like, I never feel like they would ever get grouped, but it's more so with a team like this, like, can they reach their potential, because they have the players to do so. But yeah, Blur definitely stepped up, because he was a meme the first couple of days. And G2's 5th player the whole year since they built this super team has historically been bad, whether it was Prano or Blur last stage. So I think the big thing for G2 is going to be if Doki and Alamau can stay consistent, but also we need to see more from Virtue, because he's on kind of like that that midfield like Lion, a Rooney role, and that's a kill role. Like that's not like you're supposed to just not do anything because he's clearly not planting if you look at the stats. And he does get an engagement because he does have a positive entry, but I think he does need to bring his kills up. I'm sure his kills are getting hogged like Benja, Alamau, and Doki, but he's kind of the X factor role, especially against the more consistent teams they play when they don't play SSG and Elevate, because they did lose to KOI day one. And
they beat KOI 2-1 and they lost to W7M.
Yeah, so when they start to make a deep run in this tournament and the mistakes will be magnified, it's going to take 5 people to win. So I think for this team to watch, I feel like Doki and Alamau are always going to be consistent in their role, but we got to see Virtue step up is kind of what I believe for this event.
Yeah, and so G2 will enter group stage as the playoffs as the second overall number 2 seed. They finished with the same amount of points as Sonics at 12, but Sonics had a 1 better round differential. Sonics were plus 17 and G2 were plus 16. But we'll talk about that a little later. And then going on to W7M, which is actually like I think surprising to a lot of people here because they were a tournament favorite, and like I said earlier, going into the last day they were undefeated. They were in first the whole time. Interesting scorelines for them. Key's actually struggling here. He's -4 overall. He is positive on entry. Herd's having probably one of the best tournaments right now. He's plus 31 overall, plus 10 on entry, 3 1vx's. It's kind of, I'm sure, for all the 2 seeds, like this is the team you don't want to pick, but it is kind of interesting that they end up in third, considering I think a lot of people still consider them a tournament favorite.
Yeah. I mean, they look good. I think they're top to bottom, just 5 solid players. And then you look at Julio. Julio, they're so good, he doesn't even have to do anything. But I do think that it's kind of shocking they got first or third when we expected them to get first. But then again, we notice how they have the more points than almost every second place team besides Sonics. So it's like, I don't think they played bad, and I don't think it really, honestly, doesn't really matter in my eyes. They had a good round count. They had a good map count. They just didn't have the points, but I think they'll be fine at the end of the day, even though they play BDS. Like, I think they'll power through.
Yeah, and then Koi, obviously, looking at them, pretty much very even across the board. I don't think any of them did poorly. I guess if you wanted to be like a stickler, you could say Kanto was -5 on entry, playing like their entry role. But Spoit had a huge group stage, plus 17 overall, 21 and 16 on entry. Deepak plus 16 overall, plus 5 on entry, 2 clutches. They, as a team, I think maybe had the most clutches or among the most clutches in group stage. They had 9 overall. They also had 12 total plants. So they seem to just be playing very solid overall. Obviously, they did 2-0 W7M the last day, which is no easy feat. Their only loss in group stage came on day 1 to G2. And they're going to end up with the first seed going into the playoffs, which I think is a little bit of a surprise to people after how the first few days went.
9 clutches is crazy if you think about it, because that's a whole map and basically a map and a quarter just given you because you can win your 1v1s. So I think that's a huge thing that helps. So I also think they have really good energy, and I do think they can make a deep run. Even though I did say they get grouped, they definitely proved me wrong, because they didn't regress. They didn't fall back from where they were at Berlin. I think they actually improved. So I think like I said, if we have to be picky, I think Kanto probably could perform a little better, but I think first place at the end of the day is fine. I think your fragger should be a little more firepower on his end.
And now going on to Group B, where we have M&M get first place. M&M were the only team in group stage to not lose a map. They were 4-0, 8-0 on map count. Sonics finished second. They also finished as the number 1 overall second seed. Wolves end up finishing third. Liquid, to the surprise of everyone, finished fourth, which means they're going to start in losers bracket. And Dire Wolves don't win a map, and they're eliminated from the tournament. Just starting with M&M, since I think they are the biggest surprise to many. If you look at their team, they have 4 players who are plus 10 or better, 3 players who are plus 20 or better, and 1 player who is plus 30. Solotov plus 8 on entry, Tyrant plus 5 on entry, Nello plus 3 on entry. As a team, they have 12 plants. They also have 9 clutches, which is a pretty good amount. What are your thoughts on M&M? Do you think they can keep this, like, I guess, this undefeated streak going into playoffs going, or is this going to be like, you know, a Damwon Kia situation where they look super good in group stage, and then once the playoffs comes around, you know, it's a little bit of a different beast. There's a day in between where maybe you lose some of that, like, hot streak you're on, or whatever you want to say, or do you expect M&M to keep rolling with this?
I mean, we can call it a hot streak, but I think after 8 maps, winning 8 maps in a row is a sign of consistency. Like, it's not like a fluke win like CAG has. Like, to win 8 maps in a row where it's 2 against Sonics, 2 against Wolves, 2 against Liquid, like, I think that shows consistency rather than a
Hmm.
fluke. So I fully expect them to keep this up because let's just think about it. They won 8 maps. I mean, that's eight game. I mean, you play 9 games in NAL, so they basically have gone undefeated in an NAL season, and that's consistent enough for me to say I think they'll keep it up. We were questionable about Nathan just because we don't know EUL beyond the CGG, but clearly something he has brought to the team has revitalized them.
Yep.
I mean, they look solid. Like, there's just not much to say. They to 2-0 everybody. It's not easy, especially two. I would consider Sonics and Liquid not just like average teams in the group. Like, they're above average teams for the tournament. And a 2-0 them, I mean, it says a lot. So I definitely expect them to make a deep run. And then bouncing the Liquid, uh, I think those guys had had embarrassing tournament because I had them as my top 4.
I mean, they're coming off a second place major finish
Yeah,
in Berlin as well.
I think what's shocking is Nesk performing the way he is, but Reset's having as good of a tournament as he is. He's kind of stepping in for Nesk, but we're not seeing the usual Palu. We're not seeing the usual Nesk, even the usual Ask. I mean, they just look horrible. And I don't hate Cinderella stories. I just don't believe in them a lot of the time, and I just don't. I believe they shot themselves in the foot from their group stage because I don't believe they can make it all the way back. I don't think they have a chance.
Yeah, so Liquid do start in losers bracket, which means if they falter at all, they're out. And it's interesting you bring up resets because honestly, they're wasting maybe a career tournament for resets so far. He's plus 27, plus 8 in entry. And he's usually the player I think that people have the most questions about. Palu having an okay tournament for Palu standards, he's plus 10, plus 2. But I honestly don't think we're seeing the same, like, difference maker aspect from Palu's game. And then, yeah, you already brought up Nesk. He's negative 12, even on entry. Ask is negative 11, plus 1 on entry. Lagonis is plus 16, plus 1 on entry, averaging less than 0.5 kills per round. He does have 10 plants, though. So, yeah, really weird tournament for Liquid. Everybody expected them to come in here as one of the favorites. They're coming off a really good performance where they went last map in the major finals. They have a huge performance from resets and group stage, and they're going to be starting in losers bracket to, I would say, the surprise of literally everyone. And then going up to Wolves. Wolves actually have maybe the craziest stats of any team. They end up as the 3rd seed, but looking at their team, their highest rated player is 1.04. They only have one player on their team who is positive, and he is plus 1. That's Mowgli, who's also plus 5. As a team, they do have a lot of plants. They have 15 plants, and they have 7 clutches. But looking across the board, Rise negative 19, P4 negative 13, Bibu negative 9, Shinka negative 11, and somehow they're going to start in winner's bracket. Do you think this is like a reset for Wolves where maybe they get like a breath of fresh air? Hey, they made winner's bracket and they can go on a run? Or do you think this is a situation where maybe they're just lucky to have made winner's bracket at all?
I think they're lucky, but I also just don't think they ever had a chance to win. Like I've said this before, I don't think they have the firepower to be a world class team. I think they can always make events and whatever, but I don't think whether they started in winners bracket or loser bracket makes a difference for them just because I don't think they'll ever win. I actually, as a fan of Good Siege, I'm just kind of upset that Liquid couldn't do an ounce better because obviously I'd like to see Liquid have 2 chances and Wolves 1 because I just don't care for the Wolves. I think they're so average. Um, so with that being said, it's noted that Wolves are the only 3 seed to have a negative map count. Like, they are the only 3 seed to lose more maps than they've won. So I wouldn't say they got lucky because you create your own path, but at the end of the day, like, as a fan of Good Siege, I do think that the Wolves are definitely very unimpressive. They've always been, in my eyes, unimpressive at the world level, and the fact that they perform just not shit enough to get 4 seed and not allow Liquid to get 2 chances kind of annoys me. But then again, Liquid caused it upon themselves. But that's how I feel about Wolves. Their stats are hilariously bad. I mean, you have everybody negative and one guy barely positive by a fraction. Um, it's so they're going to need a bunch of step up players, and I don't think they have any of that. I always have been a believer that Rise sucks in terms of the world level. You just can't win with guys like that. It's like this guy may be the greatest shot caller of all time, but it only gets you so far when your potential is top 8 every event, and that's it.
And then looking at Sonics, who I believe before the tournament started, you had predicted Sonics or Liquid in first, Wolves in third, M&M fourth, Direwolves fifth, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I really predicted this group because obviously it's a Sonics. But coming out of the group stage, Sonics are the number 1 overall second seed. Their only loss was a 2-0 defeat, I think 6-8, 7-5 to M&M, or maybe 8-7, 7-5 to M&M. They're the only team in the tournament where every player has a 1.0 rating or better. Citizens plus 26, plus 12 on entry. Rexons plus 23. Grixers plus 12. Geo is -1, 7 plants. Gunners plus 4, 5 plants. What are you thinking about them heading into the playoffs as the number 1 second seed?
I think they I think they look good. I had them as a second seed to Liquid, but I think them and M&M were the clear-cut 2 best teams in their group. I think the Sonics were the strongest 2 seed in the tournament, but the thing with the Sonics is it's just like if you look at the other teams that are the 2 seed, like besides Heroic, I mean they're very inexperienced when it comes to Richie, Grixer, and especially Gunner, and that may help them, that may hurt them, but it's just a lack of experience. I'm not saying they don't have a ton of it. Obviously, they've all played at events, but in terms of invite, I think this is Richie and Grixer's second invite.
Yep.
Gunner's first invite, and again, in comparison to some of the world like class players like Nesk and even though Citizen is up there, I think this is only his second or third invite because he missed out last year. So it's like they have the firepower to do it. They just don't have that tenure to really back up. Like, can they put up a deep, consistent performance? Or they're a very like wild card for me because I do know they have the potential to win, but there could be a pressure concern, and I think that's my only real view on them.
So
But
last year, 2 players on this team finished top 6 at invite. Geo obviously won invite. Citizen and Gunner did not play it. No, G2. I can't remember if G2. Yeah, so
and then
Geo
the year
and Citizen,
before they got smoked.
Yeah, but Citizen is playing the best on Sonics, at least through group stage. So I think, obviously, I'm not going to go too in depth on Sonics because I'm biased. But yeah, good group stage from them. Outside of that M&M game, I'm sure they would like to replay that one. I think there were a couple of, especially the Grixer double team kill round where they could have, I think maybe got a 7-5 in regulation there if they didn't do that. But going to be interesting for Sonics heading into the playoffs as the second seed. And now we can move on to Group C, which was maybe the most surprising group. We have Team 1 or Los 1 as the number 1 seed. They didn't lose a game, but 3 of their games went 2-1 maps. BDS as the second seed, who were 2-2, and none of their games were 2-0. OXG as the third seed, who were tied in points with BDS, but lost the head-to-head. Astralis as the 4 seed, and CAG, once again, don't make it out of groups, even though they beat BDS on the first day. I think going into this, you had predicted Astralis to get last. I think I predicted them to get 4th and Cyclops to get last. I can't remember exactly. I think you and I both picked BDS OXG for 1st and 2nd, so Team 1 surprised there by getting 1st. Looking at Team 1, they did go undefeated, which is surprising. Lobin in his first invite is plus 20 right now, plus 6 on entry. Dash plus 11. Maya -3, RHZ plus 9, and Dots -17 with 10 plants. They honestly, just looking at them, they seem like they're just pretty even across the board. Their kill totals are 119, 107, 101, 90, and 82. 4 of them are positive on entry. They honestly just seem like they have like solid across the board.
Yeah, I'll start with them just because they were impressive, although a lot of their wins were nail biters. I like the way they play. I think they have a lot of good plays up their sleeve. I know me and you were watching their border Amaru play where they just kind of had all the crossfires to plant down, just a
Mhm.
really thought out play. I think they're going to need more of that because firepower wise, I think they're obviously good, but I mean, I just don't know if they're on that level of like W7M, that level of like BDS, even though they did beat them. Like I think they play really well as a team. I think that's their strong suit. I like the way they play. Definitely impressive. But if you look at the record, like again, this is a very or pessimistic view. They could have also gone 1-0-3 in one, so they could have lost 3 BO3s. I mean, they beat
Yeah.
Astralis. I think it was 7-5, OXG 8-7, 8-7, and BDS 7-5 final
They
map. So it's
had 1-8-7 against CAG that they won. They
yeah,
had 1-8-6 against BDS that they won. They had an 8-6 against Astralis that they won. They had 2-8-7s against OXG. So they clutched up in overtime, but they could have, in theory, lost all of those games.
hmm yeah. It definitely were very close games, but I do think they do have a little spark to them. They're kind of like M. I think they have the momentum. I think they're really passionate. And this is kind of a bounce back to SSG, but if you just ever look at like the way one is like a team like that versus like SSG, like SSG may have the more historic better players, but you can just tell who wants to be there. So I think I like their energy. I like their passion. I just think that they yeah, they win a lot of maps. They've won a lot of maps, but it's been 8-7, 8-7, 8-6, which is again a little
I think they're
concerning.
a very interesting team going into the playoffs because them and M are the only undefeated teams,
Yeah.
but they are maybe less convincing than M, and I don't think we're nearly as familiar with their team. So like, it wouldn't surprise me if they lose their first game. It wouldn't surprise me if they like keep going. I think they're going to be a team to keep an eye on. And then heading on to BDS, who finished second, and for a lot of group stage, honestly, looked like they might end up in fourth. We have the best player in the tournament so far, Shyko, 152 kills in group stage, plus 58, plus 17 on entry. Liquefact, plus 20, 119 kills, plus 13 on entry. So those two combined are plus 30 on entry. Then Brit is -5, Ranchero's -12, Elims is -20, and he's 8 and 23 on entry. So for as good as Shyko is doing on entry, Elims is doing the opposite. How do you feel about BDS going into the playoffs as the second seed?
Um it's really interesting to see them get the 2 seed. They got lucky they got the 2 seed because if Brede doesn't 1v4 with a really bad SMG 12, they get 4 seed. So they're very shaky, and as you were pointing out, as good as Shyko's doing, Alems is doing is bad. They quite literally are canceling each other out because Alems -15 to someone's +17 cancels essentially just cancels it out. Like every entry Shyko gets the next round, you can say Alems gives it back. So we got to see a Lem step up. I think Berde is obviously maybe the best support player in the world, definitely the best in his region. Licky Fack, I mean, for a rookie, Licky Fack is really something because I mean, 119 kills in 12 maps and group stages. I mean, that's just I mean, to an extent, like that's very impressive. I think BDS though, I think they kind of know what they need to do. I do know that they were the second or the lowest second seed team, so them playing W7M could be in a way just them getting to lower bracket early. But I think they're better than every lower bracket team, obviously, and I do think no matter what, they can make a deep run for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
BDS obviously have the most pedigree, I would say, of a lot of these teams. They're literally coming off a major. They just won the major. And to be honest, if they can just if the limbs could just play better, they're gonna be fine. I think at the major, Limbs was playing good, and right now he's not playing good. Because you're always they're always gonna have kind of this kill structure of Shyko and Liquefact do really good. Brid is doing pretty good. Ranchero's pretty just solid, and Limbs is like the wild card. So I think if Limbs can figure out why he didn't play so great in group stage and turn that around, they obviously have the chance to win the tournament. Literally, they could win. And if he doesn't, then I think they're going to be struggling every match. And like you said, if they play W7M, maybe they don't make it out of the first round and have to go to losers. And then we go to OXG, who finished third, who I was pretty high on coming into this event. And I would still say I'm pretty high on, but I don't think they played as well as I was expecting. Newers, 1.26 rating, plus 37 overall, 26 and 13 on entry. Fox was plus 6, -8 on entry, but he did have 6 clutches. Vert playing pretty well. He's plus 5, even on entry. Dream, -8 with 14 plants. Sweater's kind of been the big liability for them. He's -12 overall, -4 on entry, 55% cost. What do you think about OXG coming into this as the 3rd seed?
I think, once again, another very good tournament from Newers. I think he's the 2nd highest rated player right now.
Yeah, I think so.
So he also, I think the most important stat for Newers is if you look next to, I think it's cost and survival rating. Newers has a 1.02 KPR, which means literally every round they play, he's getting a kill. That is the only other person to do that right now is Shyko. So that's a huge, consistency to have in your gameplay, to have someone that can literally get a kill every round. The rest of them, I think, flat out need to step it up. Sweater's getting his kills, but if you look at it too, he's dying too much. Like his survival rating may be the lowest in the tournament outside of like SSG players. So yeah, out of like the laughably bad teams, Sweater is there with like Ness. Ness is like and KZ. Like those are the only 3 people I see that have made it to playoffs that have a bad survival rating. So it's like Sweater needs to stay up more. You can get your kills, but he also just needs to obviously not die literally every round, or about 77% of the rounds. You had a good point about Dream having a lot of exit frags. We were watching his game. I'm not a huge believer in Dream. I like Dream. Nice guy. I think he, in terms of like the his region, he is one of the better support players, but I just don't ever see Dream being able to compete with someone like Bride or Alamal, like some those kind of smoke players and things along those lines. He's just like, I don't know. I think OXG definitely downgraded from Kino to Dream for sure, but they definitely upgraded in terms of Yaga to Newers. Even though Yaga's as good as he is, I do think Newers is an upgrade, but they do need to step it up. Vert's having a very average performance. Fox is having a very average performance, and you can't just rely on your 18, 19-year-old rookie at the biggest
thing
event
is,
of his life.
like the crazy thing is too is I think if you told OXG coming into this that Newers is going to go plus 37 in groups, Fox is going to go plus 6, Vert is going to go plus 5, and Dream is going to go -8 with 14 plants, they would assume they're in first place.
Yeah.
Right? But Sweater, to me, is the big problem right now. He has a 55% cost, which has to be among the lowest in the tournament, I think. Yeah, he's literally near the bottom with all the SSG players, like all the players who are eliminated in SSG, basically. Like you mentioned, he also has one of the lowest survival ratings. And to be honest, if we take out, I'm actually curious, I'm going to check right now. If we take out Sweater's game against CAG, who honestly were kind of like free, actually, he didn't even do that good in that. He was +5, +4 on entry. That would leave him at -17, -7 on entry or something like that. Maybe even worse, -8 on entry. So I do think if they're going to have any chance to go far, which I think they have the talent on the team to do, especially if Vert is playing well, Sweater just has to, he just has to kind of, almost in a way, be the lick-a-fack of OXG. Because if you're going to say Newers is kind of like Shyko, where he's getting 1 kill a round, somebody has to be getting that second frag, and they have maybe more of a balanced approach with Fox and Vert, like doing all right. But they have, like, their second fragger has to be fragging out, and right now they're, Sweater only has 7 more kills than Dream, and Dream has 14 plants. So that's obviously, I think, the problem for them. And then looking at Astralis, who are going to be the 4 seed starting in losers bracket, J9, 1.11 rating, +23, Iconic, +4, both J9 and Iconic had 100 kills. Spiff actually had I wouldn't say an amazing group stage, but I think he surpassed everyone's expectations. I will note that I think Spiff was +14 or something after the second day and finished -2. So I do think he's cooled off a little bit. But he did finish -2, -5 on entry. Forrest struggling is -10 overall, -7 on entry. And Shuttle, I think, was the lowest rated player in the tournament in groups. He's -44. averaging 0.3 kills per round, 4 and 16 on entry. What are your thoughts on Astralis?
So I'll start positive here. I think Jack's had a really good tournament. J9
100%.
has played really well, and it's not just like he's getting kills and it's whatever. He's making really, really good plays, and he's doing it on ops that aren't necessarily your fragger ops. Doing it on Flores, Wamai. He plays Ying, like he kind of plays those cheese ops. He had a really good clip against BDS, like just kind of X factor round potential for Jack. So I think that's really good to see because you can't just rely on Dave and Forrest or Iconic and Forrest to do everything, especially because Forrest plays Habana Smoke. Which again, I'm not a huge fan of Forrest on Habana Smoke just because I like to see Forrest get a little wild at this point, because we did talk about it for SSG. And I do think Astralis needs to do this. I think you just let Forrest be wild, let Forrest do Forrest things, and you put Shuttle on the breach because I don't know what I don't know the internals of Astralis right now. Maybe Shuttle's going through something, so I don't like being hard on people in this situation. But fact of the matter is, Shuttle has just like unbelievably terrible statistically, and just watching him play. He starts off every game. I think we were watching 1-6, 0-7. I mean, it's not like he's a player that is bad skill wise. Like it's not like this is something that we expected. Like he is a player that has had huge games. He's dominated NAL at times. Like he just, I mean, look at the stats in the last 6 months. Yeah, minus 100. I mean, that's unbelievable. That is actually unbelievable.
Yeah,
And then
over the crazy thing with Shuttle is his career wise, he has a 1.0 rating still, and he's still positive in his career. But over the past 6 months, he has a 0.7 rating, and he's negative 100, which is like, imagine how like, so how good was Shuttle before, and now like I just don't. It's hard to know like what's going on because obviously the skill is there for him to be a good performer, but I mean to be honest, I just again, you know, you never know what's going on with somebody. I'm going to assume there's nothing going on with Shuttle. I just don't see a way where Shuttle is on this team anymore when NAL starts.
yeah,
It's just like, I mean, at this point, they're probably like like kicking themselves for letting go DP and not Shuttle. But yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is if I told you again, kind of doing the OXG thing, where if I told you J9's going to be plus 23, Iconic's going to be plus 4, plus 7 on entry, and Spiff is going to be negative 2, you would assume you're probably top 3 in your group, right? If you're getting that performance from Spiff, because he was the big question mark. And I think the problem for them is Forrest has not performed at what we've come to expect from him. He's kind of the star player usually on Astralis. And then Shuttle is, I mean, it literally, Shuttle's putting up my kind of stats where he gets 0.3 kills a round, you know, and Shuttle's not like IGLing or anything. And he's not even playing Breach, really. He only has 3 plants. So, yeah, Astralis going to start in loser's bracket. If they're going to make any kind of run, I think they need more of a even kill contribution because they're not getting they're not getting enough kills from J9 and Iconic and Spiff to where they could offset like Shuttle getting 1 kill every 3 rounds, for instance. And then moving on to Group D, which I think this group is also pretty surprising. I believe you and I maybe picked FaZe or M80 to get first, DarkZero to maybe get second, and Heroic to get fourth. No, actually, I think we picked Heroic to get grouped and Secret to get fourth. M80 going to actually come out in first place in this group with 11 points. I believe that is the lowest first place point total, though, at 11. Heroic actually getting second in the group, which is honestly pretty impressive because from what we understand, I mean, Soth was playing FPL, and he said that he didn't even know he's going to be playing at SI until like 2 weeks ago. They just told him they needed him. DZ getting third, FaZe getting fourth with Vita King, and then Secret going to be eliminated. Although, to be fair to Secret, they played some very close games where if they could have just clutched up a couple of times, they maybe make it out of groups. So starting with M80, who are going to be the 1 seed from this group, DS Lucas, plus 31 in group stage with 5 clutches and 4 plants. Yaga, plus 21 in group stage with 4 clutches. Kino, plus 6 with 4 clutches and 11 plants. Gomez, plus 3, plus 8 on entry. And Spirits is negative 24 with plus 3 on entry. This team had a lot of clutches. I believe they have 15 clutches, which is to some an unsustainable stat, so that's something to keep an eye on. What do you think about M80's group stage?
I think M80 definitely has a high ceiling. So their group stage, them getting first is not like knock your socks off impressive. I will again. I like to be a optimist and a pessimist. I do think M80 got very, very lucky that Heroic absolutely handed them that game on a silver platter. Because Heroic should have got 4 points from that, not one, and that would have put M80 at, I believe, third or fourth. Because they'd be, so they would literally be tied with FaZe for fourth. If Heroic just plays a 2v2 post plan on CC balcony the right way. Um, I think M80 needs Spirits to absolutely step up. Gomez was our questionable player, but
Yep.
Spirits not planting, not even clutching. He just isn't even existing. In fact, I think he has the lowest survival rate in the tournament at 20%.
It's lower than Sweater. I just noticed that.
Yeah, so
he has 101 deaths. Is he the only player in the tournament with over 100 deaths? No, Pamba has 102. He's one of the only. There's only a handful of people with over 100 deaths, but most of those players have more kills. He actually is the lowest kill total on their team, but by far the most deaths.
Yeah, he is struggling immensely. Where he is struggling, though, they are picking it up. They have 4 players positive, and they do have right now, I think, the best performing breach player in the tournament, who's positive in KD and positive in, or obviously has 10 plus
and double digits plants.
Yeah. So that's and very impressive. Yeah. I mean, the talent's there. Like, we all know what Spirits can do, but I will say M80, because I believe they were the lowest first place team.
Yeah, they are.
So I don't think, I think they're talented. I don't think they'll be W7M or BDS. So, and that's who they're going to play first. But I do think their group stage they had really, really, really good moments, but they also had a lot of signs of weakness too, for sure.
And then going on to Heroic, the second seed from this group, which is very surprising, I would say. Noodle plus 25, 100 kills. Joom plus 5, plus 6 on entry. Uno negative 13, but he had 16 plants. Grizzly negative 9, and Sloth negative 3. What do you think about Heroic here? Because they're kind of like, they're definitely the underdog going into, I would say, winner's bracket as the 2 seed. And they're definitely, in my, outside of M&M, probably the surprise of the tournament in a good way.
Yeah, so Noodle definitely has impressed me, because this guy went from Mexican Pro League where he was
6th place in XPL.
Yeah, so obviously Heroic knows something that we don't, because Noodle's he's kind of a beast if you look at his stats. I mean, he's playing really well. His first international tournament. He's a fragger doing fragger things. Joom, not the best Joom tournament, but I wouldn't worry too much about it because we know what Joom can do. Sloth, for coming out of the grave and not expecting to play, is playing really well. And he was one of their best performers in EUL, so like he does have a high ceiling, which I think is a really bright spot for them. Uno played well, considering he's has just had his unbelievably bad moments, but I think he had a really good group stage, and I think he's kind of the X factor, because he has shown he can literally be 0-17 in a best of 3 against BDS, which is a very real team they could play, which to me is insane. But right now he has proved to avoid those numbers. But I think the big thing here is Grizzly. If you look at Grizzly, he has the least amount of kills on the team and the least amount of deaths. So what the fuck is this guy doing? He doesn't plant. He has some clutches, sure. He has 2 clutches.
I think he's like I would say like a flank watch player, or like a secondary breach, but he doesn't plant. So he has to be like flank watch. He
just must hold an angle all around, and either they win the round and he doesn't get a kill, or if they lose the round and he just stays alive, because that's a pretty hard stat to have the lowest kills and the lowest deaths when you're not planting like that.
Yeah, and he's not like doing awful. Like he has 0.94, -9, +4 on entry, 65% cost. Like it's not like his stats are just like terrible. It's just like, if you were to look at his stats, he doesn't have plants, he doesn't have a lot of kills, he doesn't have a lot of deaths, he's not like entering. He's kind of like, what?
He's existing.
Like
what the fuck is this guy doing
on the map? I just accidentally turned on music. Okay. That was for Grizzly.
Yeah. That was a what the fuck for Grizzly. Like, I mean, that's impressive though. I'll give him that. I mean, he just doesn't do anything. Like, I guess they win games, but like, what the fuck does this guy do? But they definitely were a surprise. I do think they can make a decently deep run. I think they have really good frag power for sure for between Noodle, Joom, and I'll give Sloth, because Sloth does have a lot of kills. He does have almost 100 kills. So I do think that there is a bright spot in Heroic for sure. I just need to see more from Grizzly because I mean, what the fuck does this guy do?
Yeah, and then
like that?
going to the third seed, which is DarkZero. NJR 128 kills plus 35. I think one of the games he had like 45 kills. Panba 107 kills plus 5 plus 8 on entry. Gavini having a solid debut plus 6 -8 on entry. Canadian is -12 -1 on entry, and Skies is -31 with 17 plants. As a team, DarkZero have 26 plants, which is a shit ton. And they also have 7 clutches. What are your thoughts on DZ?
I think DZ is a one-man army right now. NJR has just bails him out of so many rounds, and it's crazy because he does it on ops like Ace, Smoke, Warden. Like, yes, those ops are last alive or traditionally X Factor operators and are live late, but he just consistently puts up numbers every time. I feel like I'm watching him, and he does have 128 kills in 11 maps. But if you do the math, break it down, he that would be 100 kills in an NAL season. So like on Ace and Warden, it's very impressive. He's very close to averaging a kill per round. So he definitely needs to keep this up. Now where I'm gonna be my usual hater is Skies is playing unbelievably terrible. Skies will tell you he's playing bad. He did have a good game yesterday, but I mean M80
I think he
has secured.
in his defense, I'm pretty sure he does lead the tournament right now in plants.
I'll give him that. He does get the bomb down, but I just always have felt like Sky's strong suit as a player is not Breach, and he always wants to play Breach. He loves playing Breach. He's tweeted about it. He has said many times he thinks he's a Breach player. I just don't see him on it. I think Troy, who's a world champion Breach player, should go back to Breach. Troy has a horrible cost. If you watch Troy play, like he's the X factor, and like yesterday on Theme Park when we were watching the over under, he had 3 kills one round, 3 kills another, and then 2 kills, but he ended under because he's so impactless in a lot of rounds in terms of like what he does on the field, not in terms of his comms. I'm sure he gives strategy and insight in the round, but there's just such little impact he brings to so many rounds. It's concerning. Gaveni's playing well, but like his entry's awful. He's on weird rules. I don't think he's a DMR player. He's not doing bad, but he's not knock your socks off good. Pamba's playing all right. He does die a lot, but he does get his entries, and you kind of know what you're getting with Pamba. He's a pretty good, consistent player. But DZ, I mean, they play Sonics tomorrow, and I will talk about that later. But I'm just not sold on them right now, for sure. Not sold at all.
And then the last team to make it out of groups and to go to losers bracket, which is extremely surprising, obviously, is FaZe. Souls plus 26 plus 7 on entry. Cyber plus 11 plus 14 on entry. Although I will say in regards to Cyber, he did have a game yesterday against Secret where I think he was literally plus 15 on entry in like one game. Or something crazy like that. So that obviously helped his stats. Astra was plus 2 with 8 plants. Vita King actually seemingly picked it up a little bit. He was -4 with 6 plants. Bullet 1, bottom fragging, -11 with 2 plants. He's also, in rumors, the player who's supposedly might be replaced by a W7M member after this tournament. What do you think about FaZe here? Do you think they're a threat to make a lowers bracket run, or is this not the same FaZe you're used to seeing?
It's definitely not the same FaZe. Vita King is just... Did he play okay? Yeah, sure, he played okay. But you're not comparing him to everybody else. You need to compare him to how would Cameraman play? How would the team play with Cameraman? And I don't think Cameraman would allow FaZe to get 4th. I just don't see a reality where like them with Cameraman, after 2 stages of getting 2nd at Berlin and 8th at the Sweden Major, like I just don't see how they would have regressed to this point with them. So I think their risk definitely failed. Souls consistently their best player. He's kind of like the NJR of Europe LATAM in my opinion. He just plays those roles that aren't necessarily your Ash Yeager traditional frag roles, but he'll always go huge, and he's kind of a bailout player for sure. So that's who I compare him to. Oh my god, I'm about to cough. But that's who I'm about to compare him to. But I think FaZe do I think they can make a lower bracket run? No, I don't think with 1 life left, how many games would they have to play to make finals? 15, 10? I mean, who knows? But I just think there's too many games you need to play good Siege. And just at the end of the day, like you can play good Siege at this level, but you can always be outplayed. And I think with 1 life left, you can't consistently play well enough to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 BO3s, 6 BO3s.
Okay, and that's kind of a rundown of group stage and how our predictions were right or wrong. And so now let's jump into the playoffs where the bracket was announced a little bit earlier today. And we can try to make some more predictions here and see how right or wrong we are. Obviously, I will try to avoid making Sonic's predictions because I don't want to jinx anybody. But starting off, the first round, first game, we have the number 2 seed Heroic playing against Oxygen. Heroic were the third 2 seed, and they picked OXG over W7M. The winner of this game will play M&M later on Monday. Who do you have winning this game between Heroic and OXG?
I think this game's going to come down to a Joom versus Sweater kind of battle because they kind of play the same. Like they both play ridiculously stupid. Obviously, Joom has played significantly better, but they both play with the same kind of play style. I think if we have a big Sweater game, if Sweater does what Sweater can do, I think OXG will win. So I'm going to put OXG beating Heroic 2-1. I think it'll be close, but I just think OXG is the more like tenured, experienced team. So I'm going to give them the 2-1 win.
Yeah, this one's actually kind of difficult for me because going into this tournament, I 100% pick OXG. And to be honest, I don't know that I have faith in Sweater playing better. I think Sweater's kind of playing how he's going to play. Now, I will say I do think that I do think OXG potentially are coming from a little bit of a better group, maybe. I guess maybe that's not necessarily true. Maybe top to bottom, just because there was no APAC team in Group D. That group is better, but I think I gotta pick OXG here just based off the fact that I just think they're more talented and coming into this tournament. Because so my thinking when we get to playoffs is like you keep in mind how they played in playoffs, but it's a complete reset. Like group stage honestly doesn't matter anymore. Like in theory, there's an off day. It's a complete reset. None of that matters anymore. And if it's just me looking at OXG against Heroic, not knowing what happened in group stage, I'm taking OXG like every time. So I also think that I think I'm going to pick OXG there. And that would mean that would send Heroic down to loser's bracket where they're going to play SSG. Who would you pick between SSG and Heroic?
I would take Heroic for sure. I think they played way cleaner Siege. I think I don't know how Rampy and Fultz could handle Joom and Noodle right now. Like, I don't know how, if they're struggling with G2, I don't know how they're going to handle that explosiveness from those two. So I think Heroic will win convincingly. Now, I do want to say, I think Oxygen, if they lost to Heroic, that'd be fine because I would love to see an Oxygen SSG game to go home because that would be the game of jobs because a lot of people would lose their job after that. So I'm not opposed to seeing OXG lose a Heroic. I think that would be actually as a hater, a certified hater. I do think that OXG losing would be hilarious just because OXG SSG with jobs on the line would go absolutely insane. We could see the rawest Siege, the most emotion we could ever see from some of these players. So that's what I would want to see. But realistically, I think OXG wins. And
yeah,
I think whoever loses beats SSG.
I don't know if this is my like copium, but I really want to say SSG here just because if this was before the tournament and it's SSG against Heroic, I'm probably picking Heroic. But Rampy and Fultz have been playing so bad, and SSG just seem to be so in their own heads and so down bad at this point. I mean, we talked about that stat earlier. We're like over the past 3 matches, 6 maps that they've played, they've won less than 10 rounds. Like it just doesn't seem like there's any improvement coming. I don't know that the off day is like knowing that team. I feel like if anything, it's just going to like keep frustrating them and they're going to keep like pressing, to try to fix it. So I want to say SSG here. But I just think the SSG are so down bad right now that I also would put Heroic to eliminate them. I'll say 2-1 just for the hell of it, but I honestly don't like SSG just seems so down bad. It's hard for me to even give them like a map. And then okay, so upper bracket, which is G2 against Wolves, the winner of this playing Team 1 or Los 1. G2 were the second rated or second highest ranked number 2 seed, which means they picked Wolves ahead of W7M. Oh, no, they couldn't pick W7M. That means they picked Wolves ahead of OXG. What do you think about this matchup?
I think, like I said, as a certified hater, I hate Wolves. I hate watching them play. They're so boring. They have no explosiveness, no firepower. I think G2 beats them easy 2-0. And then I think G2 goes on to beat Los +1 just because I'm not sold on Los +1. I think G2 again has more firepower, more explosiveness. And this is the first game I'll say where I think the loser of this game, and I do think the loser will be Wolves, will lose to FaZe Clan as well and be sent home.
Okay. So I also think G2 are going to win. G2 look very strong this tournament. Wolves, I do think, have been playing a bit better as the tournament has progressed, but G2 have a lot of familiarity with Wolves. They're from the same region. They picked them for a reason, I believe. Doki, Benja, and Alamau are playing really well so far. As we talked about earlier, Wolves only have one player who is even positive, and he's +1. And we're kind of aware of maybe the Wolves best of 3 struggles a little bit. So I also think G2 are going to move on to play Team 1. And then I think I'm with you as well there. I think FaZe eliminate Wolves and move on. And that might end up being that's a game where people lose their job too. Just because of, if you're Wolves and you're getting top, what would that put you? Top 12? No, top 16. You get double first rounded. I don't think you think they keep like a player like Rise after getting double first rounded at SI with Blaz available now, for instance, who, they are French speaking teams. So they do need French players.
Absolutely not. So like I said, I want to see Wolves lose. I'm tired. I hate watching them play. I think they're the most boring team to watch.
Okay, and then going to upper bracket 1.3, which is Sonics against DarkZero. I'm not going to pick this game for obvious reasons. The Sonics were the number 1 second seed, and they picked DarkZero. The Sonics could not pick Wolves. And the winner of this will go on to play Koi. What are you thinking about this game?
I think this game, on paper, DZ's been struggling, but I think this is going to be a really close game. I think it's going to come down to how well Gaveni plays, because I think we know what we're going to get with NJR. I think we know what we're going to get with Pam, but I think we know what we're going to get with Troy. Gaveni can either shit his pants right here, or he can step up and really be the X factor. As close as this one is, I'm going to give it to Sonics 2-1, but it's not going to be an easy win. It's going to be a very, very hard fought game, just because I feel like it's really hard to dominate a team like DZ anyways.
Well, there's a lot of familiarity in this game.
Yeah.
Obviously, these teams scrim each other, so they do have an idea of maps and things like that. So again, I'm not going to pick it. I do expect it to be a good game. Sonics picking DarkZero certainly doesn't mean that Sonics think DarkZero are weak at all. If you listen to me on the last podcast, I thought that OXG were the second best NA team coming into SI based off of scrims, which means that Sonics think that OXG plays their style well. So that's why Sonics don't pick OXG. And obviously, I don't think Sonics would pick W7M in this position. And can't pick the Wolves. So kind of process of elimination. Certainly not any kind of shade to DZ. It's just kind of the way it works out. So then that puts DZ, if they were to lose to Sonics, in the losers bracket playing Astralis. Who do you have there for the back-to-back NA matches?
I definitely think Astralis gets sent home. I don't think like I said, Astralis is playing a 4v5 right now, and I don't see anything they can do to change that.
Do you think okay, so obviously I wouldn't say Skies is playing at that level, but that would be a match where there's a -44 player against a -31 player. Would that matter at all in your opinion?
Well, Skies has 17 plans. Shuttle has I think 0. True. And I will also add that Skies has had big map, he had a big map against M80, and I'm more confident in Skies on Breach Smoke going -30 than Shuttle -50 on Buck, Jaeger, Mute, kill ops. So I'm definitely going to take DZ there. Now, I do want to add to your point about Sonics picking DZ over Oxygen. And I like to put myself in other people's shoes. If I'm in the Sonic shoes right here, like, yeah, I'm confident. I think that obviously the Sonics are a great team, but there's no easy choice here. I do think OXG and DZ are great teams. Like, they're hard to play. I think that's something that
None of the
fans
teams
don't
that make the winners bracket of SI are some shit team. Like, that's why they're
yeah,
there.
this is like would you rather like step on glass or needles? Like it's just it's a hard choice. As somebody who's played against both these teams, like I just think about every scenario. Like that is just not an easy choice. But I do think the Sonics made the right choice against DZ. I think historically you guys have always done well against DZ. I think you have I know OXG did beat the Sonics last stage because I know they did I think it was an Oregon game. It was kind of a meaningless game for OXG, but it meant a lot for the Sonics. I know DZ and Sonics always match up well, so I think that's a good one. But I do think DZ will play Astralis and losers, and I don't think Astralis has the firepower to win. I think Spiff beat the shit allegations. Now he has the mid allegations against him, and he's getting pressed for those really hard right now. So I think a DZ will be fine if they lose to Sonics. I think they'll just have to play Astralis and win.
And then the last game of upper bracket round 1, BDS against W7M, which if you told people this was the final of the whole tournament, they will have believed that. And this is a round 1 game. Who do you got here?
This one's tough, but I'm gonna go with BDS. I think why am I picking BDS? I don't know. I actually have no idea. I really just think they're both so good. You can make a case for both. I think this is kind of like picking the Super Bowl. Like it doesn't, to me, it's like there's no wrong answer. I just think Shyko is too consistent. KZ or Keys, however you pronounce his name, has not been playing well. W7M does look strong. They don't look as strong as usual. I think BDS is just a safer option. But I think they're both incredibly talented. Now, the crazy thing is that the loser will play Liquid. Now, that could have been a final 3. In fact, I had 3 of these 4 teams in my final 4. So this is like a horrible.
Well, so in your theory where you pick BDS to beat W7M, I think I would also pick BDS, but that's with me assuming Alims plays slightly better.
Yeah.
If Alims doesn't play any better, I think W7M will win. But either way, that means that you're going to have Liquid against W7M, which was the semifinals match of the last major, or you're going to have BDS against Liquid, which was the finals of the last major, and one of them is eliminated immediately. So who, in your situation or your prediction where you're picking BDS, W7M against Liquid, who's going out top 16?
I think Liquid goes. I just don't think they've been playing well at all. BDS hasn't been playing necessarily well either, and W7M has played extremely well. They just haven't played as well as KOI.
If Liquid were to lose to W7M and get top 16, does Nesk keep playing?
I think Nesk and Palu, and I said this on Twitter the other day, they need to split. The formula for those two doesn't work. They've tried everything. They've tried to put players around them. The formula doesn't work. Now, I think Palu's better than Nesk. I don't think Nesk should ever retire per se, but I think Nesk needs to get on a different team. I think
I could never see Nesk or Palu on a different team. Is the thing.
I could never. Liquid. I couldn't either, but at the same time, it's like you have to just like if he wants to play and if he wants a chance of winning, I do think he needs to switch teams. And we have seen huge roster shifts before. Like at the end of the day, like we probably never thought we would see Citizen not on G2, like and now he comes to NA. Like I feel like if Nesk wants to play and if he really wants to win, he needs a new team. I just don't think the formula of him and Palu will work. They've come close so many times, but at the end of the day, like you gotta move on. I do think this is the end of Palu and Nesk together, though. I think we could see their very last game together.
Okay. So then that leads us to upper bracket round 2, which would be for top 8. Actually, it would be for top 6 because that's where we got to last year. And the first game is going to be, and keep in mind, all of these games are played on Monday. So the losers bracket team play a game, they have to play twice, where the winners bracket team only plays once on Monday. Does that matter? Maybe not. Last year, Sonics, TSM, they both won both of their games. So I don't know how much it matters, but that's the situation. Game 1 of winners bracket, round 1 or round 2 is M against OXG. Who do you have here?
I take M. Like I said, it's not. I don't see it as a fluke when you have won 8 maps in a row. Now, if there was 2 best of 3s, maybe, but M has won 8 maps in a row. They're on fire now. Obviously, I would assume they have the coaching and staff and players to realize that they shouldn't buy into the hot hand fallacy. They still need to put in work, but I think they're more well prepared. They have the advantage. The only thing I'll say right now for the teams that play first is there is a real thing of momentum. And if you come off a big win, like that could kind of hurt the upper bracket teams.
I could see a situation like in my head, say Sweater does really well against Heroic, and then he goes immediately into this M game feeling like very confident. Maybe that propels them to win that game.
Yeah, that's the only bad thing about having a bye is, yeah, you'll be fresh and ready to go, but momentum, like I said, momentum's a huge thing, and when you're on fire, you're on fire in Siege. Like you can't be stopped. So that's a huge worry for me for the upper bracket teams. But I still take M. I think they're just too well versed right now.
Yeah, I do. This is a really tough game for me because I also think the map pools here are interesting. But if I were to make this prediction before the tournament, obviously I'm picking OXG.
Yeah.
I don't think in this situation I could pick OXG, who were 1-1-1-1 with a +6 round count differential, assuming Liquipedia is correct. I'm not sure if that's exact. OXG also lost to BDS. They beat Astralis 2-1. They did 2-0 CAG, and then they lost 2-0 to Team 1. M are the only
8-7 though.
Yeah, and Team 1 or M are the only team who haven't lost a map yet. I think this is a close game, but I also think I just have to go with M. Just based off of what we've seen from them. It's honestly means nothing against OXG. Like, that's no shade to OXG. I just think M are playing really well right now. And M did beat us in that match. You could say maybe we kind of shot ourselves in the foot, at least on Clubhouse. But I gotta pick the team that was the most dominant in groups to at least win their first playoff match. Now, I will say, you could say, in regards to the M guys, they are super inexperienced in these kind of situations. They've never made it out of groups before. This is the first time outside of Nello, and maybe Nave had before. So that could be something to think about. Is like it is a different environment now that you're playing playoffs. But I think we both go M, and that means that's going to put OXG down. That means OXG are going to go down to losers bracket. 1 second.
That's gonna suck for whoever has that run.
And that also means that OXG would be playing W7M or Liquid or BDS. Who do you have going through there?
Man, that's tough. Whoever, I feel like if you're M, like, you're confident, but
now this is the next day, so that game would be the next day.
I mean, like I said, if I'm M, I see 2.1 as a must win because I do not want to play W7M BDS Liquid. With that being said, I don't think whoever loses the upper bracket 1.1 game or 2.1 game is going to win against who'd I have W7M. I just don't. Again, it's a momentum thing. You're coming off a loss, they're coming off a win. Sure, they've played one more BO3 than you, but I just like it. It's just a shot in the foot to play a team like that in the lower bracket. Like obviously, I've never played it invite with double elim, but I'm sure it's very, very scary to play a team like that. Like it's like, fuck, dude. Like, especially that early, you would think you'd play like an SSG or a Faze, but you gotta play BDS, W7M Liquid. But I don't think they'll win, whether it's OXG or M, especially OXG in this case, because I do think they'll lose. Now, if it's an OXG W7N game, I definitely take W7M. I even take it 2-0.
Okay. So then that means you have OXG going out top 12.
Yeah.
All right. And then winners bracket round 2 for upper bracket is Team 1 or Los 1 against G2. Who do you have there?
I take G2. I like G2. I like the way they've been playing. I like the new Benja pickup. I think they have the new life to them, a new fire. I think Alamau and Doki have been playing really well. Nothing against one. I just think G2's just been playing really, really well. I don't see a reality where they lose this, so I'm going to give it to G2.
Yeah, I think just even though Team One were undefeated in group stage, I honestly think that G2 were more impressive. They just seemed stronger. So
Yeah.
I also think I picked G2 here, but again, this was another match. Like all these matchups are going to be super hard to pick. That's why it's winners bracket round 2. But I also think I picked G2 there, which is going to put Team 1 into losers bracket 2.3, which I believe means that Team 1 then would play DarkZero. And your predictions here, who would you have going through there of Team 1 against DarkZero?
I'll take DZ. I think they're just more well versed. They're a little more consistent, and I feel like their play style is kind of a shutdown style for a team like one that does a lot of cheese plays, a lot of low bin Amaru this or low bin knock this like kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that stuff works really well against DZ once, maybe even for a whole map it works, but in a best of 3, I don't see the consistency of it. Working against DZ. It may work against a lot of other teams, but that play style is a good matchup for DZ in my eyes. So I'm going to give it to DZ, and I think one goes out after their 2 games, but I think they had a top 12 for them is a good run.
Okay, and so now we have Koi against Sonics. What are you thinking there? Obviously, for this one, I'm not really going to predict.
I'm going to give it to Koi just because I think they've been playing really, really well. They've been on a three games dub streak because they did lose to G2 the first day. I do think it'll be very close against Sonics. I think their firepower is a good matchup. Like I think they everybody in this lobby can gun. I think I'm going to give it to KOI or Koi because I just think that they're kind of the NA Slayers. They absolutely shit on Xset at the Berlin major and Xset kind of has that aggressive 5-gunner play style. So I'm gonna give it to KOI. I think they make it through, but I think it's gonna be a close 2-1 that could definitely go either way.
Okay, yeah, I do think it's a interesting matchup in terms of I think they're both like super heavy fragging power matchups, so I think that'll be a interesting game to watch. And then that puts Sonics in the losers bracket where they would play FaZe in this situation. Who do you have there?
I'm gonna take the Sonics over FaZe very decisively. I think Sonics have more firepower. I think just FaZe just doesn't look the same. So I'm gonna give it to Sonics 2-0, an easy 2-0 or even a clean 2-1 for Sonics, and then I think it's a no contestant. I think they don't that's a no worry game for them in my eyes.
Okay, and then the last upper bracket round 2 game is M80 against BDS. Who do you have?
I'm gonna take BDS. I think M80 again. M80 is a great team, but I think I'm on the assumption Alems will get his shit together. I'm on the assumption that Spirits may not. I think Alems has been in this situation far more times than Spirits, so I'm gonna give it to Alems, and I think BDS is just more clean, more cut. I do think if there is a team to kind of shut Shyko down, it would be M80 just because they're very challenge heavy. Like I feel like they kind of would their game plan because I know Budega's a pretty smart guy. Whether he's banned or not, he's still the coach. Like he calls the shots. Like Budega's game plan is probably going to be shut Shyko down, and they're going to do whatever they can to do that because they see the rest of the team's kind of a liability, except DFAC. So I think they'll have a good game plan, and I think they could win off their game plan. I think it needs to be executed properly because if it's executed, they can win. But I just think Shyko is too strong of a force for a lot of these young players. This is what DS Gomez's first invite, Spirit's second. So I think I'm going to give it to Shyko here, and I think BDS will win.
Do you realize that means that you have picked the top 4 of winners bracket to be M&M, G2, Koi, and BDS? So you picked all EU teams in the winners bracket?
Yeah, that makes me sick, but at the same time, I think like the EU bracket they got good draws. I think they got favorable matchups, except BDS. But I think BDS will. I mean, I think EU's looked good. I think EU's looked really good, except Secret. So I'm confident they can come through for me.
Okay, and then the losers bracket match, there's going to be M80 against Heroic. I think they've already even played each other, if I'm not mistaken.
They have, yeah.
Who do you have there?
I think it'll be close, but I think M80 will win.
Well, keep in mind, didn't you say earlier that Heroic basically like gifted M80 the win? Like they
did get it should have been a 2-0 Heroic, but I also feel like M80 will learn from their mistakes. I do think M80 is the better team. Like M80 is the better team than Heroic. And when you're the better team, it's kind of how I see it as like a reality TV SSG situation. Like you may catch them off guard the first BO3, but the second BO3 comes around, SSG mopped RTV. Like I think M80 would mop Heroic. I think they kind of understand what Joom and Noodle do. I think they understand how Heroic plays. I don't think they would take Heroic to Border, which is obviously their favorite map, or seemingly their favorite map, by the way, how much they play it. And I think they just that's how I see it. I think M80 would beat Heroic pretty handedly.
Okay, so then let's go to the winners quarterfinals. That means the winner of this is going to be in the top 3, I believe. No, wait. Winner.
This would be top.
Yeah, this would be top 3. The winner of this would go to top 3. So yeah. M&M versus G2. Who do you got?
I'm gonna keep the hot hand up here for M&M, and I think they're gonna win. I think they have something really special right now, and I'm gonna be a bandwagon. I wasn't a believer at first of Nafe, but I think something he brought to this team, whether it was just the reassurance of extra firepower, the reassurance of leadership, has sparked something within them. I think it'll be a close game for G2, but I think I just think that M&M has a little too much power right now. They're kind of plot armor-ish.
Okay. And then Koi against BDS.
This is going to be a really tough one, but I'm going to put it on BDS. I think BDS is just kind of
so you think BDS are making the run here?
I think BDS.
And you have them beating W7M, M80, and then Koi in a row.
Yeah,
it'd be Koi or Sonics in this situation.
They won the last major, so I do think they can do it. And I wouldn't even call it a run. They got second in their group, but I think teams like BDS, when the pressure's on the line and they really need to dig deep, they can do it because they didn't have the best Yonko, however the fuck you say that city's major. They didn't have the best Sweden major group stage, but when it came time to dig deep, they really powered through and pushed through against Liquid, pushed through against FaZe or whoever they beat in that tournament. But yeah, I think they really can do it, and I think Shyko's the best player in the world, so I had to put my money on Shyko. It's like putting your money on LeBron.
Okay, and then these are the top 8 matches. The winner of this is going to go to top 6, which means they make the stage. M80 against Sonics.
This one's going to be a tough one, but I'm gonna give it to Sonics just because I feel like they both have that very aggressive gunner play style. Like they have shooters on their team. They have X Factor players, but I think the way Sonics have been playing has been way more consistent than M80. I think top to bottom, they have way more consistent players. Like the way I describe Spirits is he's a high ceiling player, but he has the lowest floor out of anybody in that lobby. So I'm going to give it to Sonics. It'll be close, but I do think M80 with the right pieces, with the right plan can win. Like I said, Spirits are going to be the X Factor here. I feel like the Sonics don't have an X Factor right now. They're all doing really well. And teams like M80 definitely have their X Factors right now. So I'm going to give it to Sonics because I don't believe in that X Factor right now at this moment.
And then the last game of this round, DZ against W7M.
This one's hard for me because I think DZ does really strategize well against kind of like the LATAM teams. You don't know what you're getting with LATAM team. I think DZ's really good at that default play style to shut stuff down. But I think W7M has something special.
DZ did lose 2-0 to FaZe. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. But so I'm gonna take W7M. I think DZ's a good team, but I think like Troy Canadian kind of ratting with knock may not work as well against KZ and Herds as it does against Team Secret.
All right, so that means that you have the top 6 as M&M, BDS, G2, Sonics, Koi, and W7M.
Yeah.
In the winners finals, who do you have going to the grand finals, M&M or BDS?
I'm going to give it to BDS. I think they're just, like I said, they're too powerful. Shyko's too good. Now, I do think M&M has made it deep enough to where like they should be like it's deep enough to where I think that the 8-0
They make
streak is
stage
worn
in this
off.
situation. They've made the stage
Yeah, so it's
with
definitely
the
worn
fans.
off. Yeah, so I think the fans may even power up Shyko because I don't know any M&M fans, honestly. I think Shyko has probably one of the largest fan bases in Siege. So I'm going to give it to Shyko. I think M&M's hot hand is kind of worn off to the point where like they can't rely on just saying they win 8-0 in groups because groups would have been 10 days ago. So I'm going to give it to BDS.
Okay, and now we have losers bracket for top 4. G2 against Sonics. So this is Citizen against G2.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Sonics in this one just because I like a revenge story. Not saying there's bad blood between Citizen and G2, but for the sake of this pick, I can in my own head say there is. So I'll give Citizen the buff of playing an old team, and I'll give it to Sonics.
And then Koi against W7M.
I'm going to give it to W7M. I think W7M.
So you have W7M going
losing
out in round 1. So you have W7M losing to BDS round 1 and then going losers bracket round 1 all the way to top 4 right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
And then the top 4 matchup, Sonics against W7M. Who do you have?
I take W7M.
Okay. So you have W7M moving on to the top 3, Sonics out in 4th. And then you have the losers bracket finals of W7M versus M&M. Who do you got?
W7M.
So you have W7M from round 1 of losers bracket going all the way to the grand finals.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty impressive run.
That would be very impressive, but I think they can do it.
Okay. And then you have grand finals, best of 5, BDS against W7M. Who's winning? Who are your SI champions?
I'm going to take Shyko and BDS. They haven't lost yet as a team. I don't think they'll lose this.
So you're having BDS win invite.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And W7M gets second.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to go back over this, Yardy's predictions are BDS first, W7M second, M&M third, Sonics fourth, G2 and Koi tied for 5th, 6th, M80 and DarkZero top 8, Heroic, Faze, Team 1, OXG top 12, and SSG, Wolves, Astralis, Liquid top 16. What of those would you say of the teams? Where do you think it like the problems could arise? Like, what's the sleepers that could happen? Like, what matchups were you not that confident in where you could see it going a different way? Like BDS, W7M, Koi-san, like any of those kind of matchups.
Honestly, I think it's hard because I think all these teams, besides Astralis and SSG, I do think all these teams have winning potential, even FaZe and Liquid.
Right.
So it's hard to say what their weak points are. I'll tell you, I think the glaring weak points for the top 4 teams are Los One. I just don't believe in them. KOI, I don't think their weakness is anything other than I just think there's better teams. M&M, their weakness is experience, in M80, I think Spears is going to be a huge X factor. And Gomez needs to stay consistent too. He's been playing well, but we need to see him do better. You can't rely on DS to 1v4 everything. I think Sonics can make a deep run. I did have Sonics, W7M, and BDS in my top 4 to start before the tournament. Mm-hmm. So I still think those 3 will finish there, and the order doesn't really matter to me. I just think BDS, W7M are the 2 best in my opinion. But I just think those are the weak points to point out, or like for a lot of teams inexperience, and for the other teams a lack of inconsistency. And as many maps as you'll play in a game like Siege, there really isn't a lot of consistency, but you need to find something that works. And I think the teams I picked just have the most like tried and true way to put up the results.
Are there any players here who you think this is the last time we'll see them play once they lose?
I think this is the last event for a lot of players. I mean, just looking at the NA teams, I don't think Skies makes it any further. I don't even think maybe even Gaveni. For SSG, this may be the last for all of them. SSG may not drop the whole team, but may say, okay, Hodden, here's the keys, do what you want, or here, Yeti. Like, I think this could be Fultz and Rampy's last event. I think it should be. Astralis, I think Dave, Jack, Dave and Jack are set. I think Forrest is set. Spiff, I don't think Spiff is set. I think this may have been kind of like the Vita King thing. Like this may have been a trial for him, which in my eyes is stupid. I don't think you trial people for SI, but I don't think Spiff is set, and I don't think I definitely know Shuttle's a goner. Shuttle might as well start packing his bags and play with nothing to lose at this point because he's not staying. There's no way he does.
Okay, and then you've already kind of said you think this. You don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but you think Nesk and Palu should separate.
Oh yeah, I
go
definitely
different
think
ways.
should. The formula doesn't work. It's been tried for however long, 4 years. Maybe this may even be their 5th year together.
I think also for FaZe, this is probably Bullet's last tournament with them.
Yeah.
Also for Wolves, probably Rise's last tournament if they don't do well.
Yeah, which it should be, and maybe
honestly, sleeper pick could be M80. Could if Spirits does really bad, could be. There's a lot of players out there. Could be a Spirit situation maybe for M80. I know those guys are really close, but
they've just had such a good year, though. I don't know, like, I mean, I know Marco. I know Marco wants to win, but I also know how they are as people and friends, and I just think their year has been too good to make a roster change, because Spirits has also bailed him out of a lot of games and rounds.
Okay, so you heard it here first. BDS first, W7M second, M&M third, Sonic's fourth, G2 and Koi 5th and 6th. That's who you're going to see on the SI stage. We'll see how wrong Yardy is. Starting tomorrow on Monday. Remember, there are two winners bracket games tomorrow, and then losers bracket begins Tuesday. Should be a good week or week plus of Siege. We'll see what happens. Thanks for watching. Godspeed.